Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Crash Course Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about a commander that is really good. Well, some very powerful decks out there, of course, but also a very good commander for beginners too. Let's jump into it and talk about this commander and how we're going to build it, how it's going to work, and how we're going to decimate our opponents. And that commander is Ezuri Claw of Progress, one that can be very straightforward, have, some different kind of layers to it, but basically play small creatures, make creatures big, smack opponents. It's pretty straightforward. Ezuri Claw of Progress is a 3/3 elf warrior for 4 mana in Simic. Whenever a creature of power 2 or less enters the battlefield under control, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X counters on target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. So basically, again, you just get creatures into play. Again and again and again. A lot of them, essentially. There's other ways to play around those counters we'll talk about here in a bit too, but focus on getting a lot of creatures into play, and then all of a sudden be like, oh, okay, cool. That creature's huge. Swing! And yeah, there are some really cool effects that we can work with. Really cool ways to take advantage of those counters as well. Really cool ways to take advantage of that power. But at its base, again, this is a very simple commander that's just like, okay, play small creatures, make them big. Very simple, very effective, very powerful commander. This is also a very budget-friendly deck. According to Moxfield, just $19 for this deck, not including shipping or basic lands, but still a very budget-friendly deck, especially for a beginner. More, budget-friendly than many precons these days. I think, like, the Modern Horizons ones were like $70 or so, right? Ridiculous. Regardless, if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. With all that said, let's jump into it. Now, first up in tactic number 1, let's bounce. Let's talk about some creatures that, well, can bounce. Shrieking Drake is an amazing one. A 1/1 Drake with flying for 1 mana. Enters the battlefield, return a creature you control back to its owner's hand. Here's the thing. It can be itself. So being able to just pay a single blue mana, play it, get an experience counter thanks to your commander, bounce it back to your hand. You can do it again, and again, and again, and again for this 8-cent card. Just give you so much value in your deck. Just basically pay a blue mana, make an experience counter. You can just do that as many times as you can in a turn, build up those experience counters, and maybe at a certain point, if you're actually down to just play this and leave it in play, sure, do so. It can be an evasive flyer that you can make absolutely massive. Speaking of which, Fairy Imposter, a 2/1 Fairy Rogue with flying, same cost, again, just a single blue mana. ETBs, sacrifice unless you return another creature control to its owner's hand. You have to bounce something else. That's okay, though. Again, an evasive creature that can bounce something back that you then replay again. Probably a 1-mana creature. A great way to get an extra experience counter. Trusted Advisor, a 1/2 human advisor. It says your maximum hand size is increased by 2. That's nice because when this is in play, it will keep your hand size at 9, while it matters on your turn. Beginning of your upkeep, though, return a blue creature control to its owner's hand. You can just bounce this right back to your hand, then replay it. There you go. Again, bouncing is a good thing for this deck to build our experience counters. Wirewood Symbiote. Turn an elf you control back to its owner's hand, untap our creature, active only once each turn. First up, this is a great way to potentially freely protect our commander, which is an elf, so bounce it back to your hand if you need to, or bounce another elf back to your hand, and then, untap maybe, say, a mana dork, which is great to then tap it for mana, and also maybe replay that creature. So being able to get a lot of value out of something simple like this. Arctic Merfolk, a 1/1 kicker. You can kick it by returning a creature control back to its owner's hand. If you kick it, you get an extra counter. Cool, nice. What's important, though, again, is that is a way to potentially bounce another creature back to your hand. Dreamstalker, yet another way, a 1/5 ETBs with some really weird art. Enters the battlefield, return a permanent control back to its owner's hand. Yeah, that's some disturbing art. Amazing, though. Moving on, Quickling, 2/2 flash flying ETBs, sacrifice unless you turn another creature control back to its owner's hand. A great way to protect something if we need to, but also a great way to be like, okay, I play this. I bounce something. I play that. Yay, experience counters. Next up, Treetop Ambusher, a 2/1 that says whenever it attacks, target creature you control gets +1 until end turn. How does this bounce, though? Wait, it's got dash. Dash for 1 and a green, so essentially you can play it, it gets haste, and it's bounced back to your hand at the beginning of the next end step, so you don't have to attack if it's going into danger. Yeah, if you want to, though, you can. But yeah, you can just bounce it back to your hand repeatedly again. Next up, Zephyr Sentinel, 2/1 flash flying, ETBs, return to 1 other target creature control back to its owner's hand. It was a soldier, get a counter on it. Don't really worry about that soldier thing, but what you care about, again, is a 2/1 flash for 2 mana that you can bounce something else back to your hand, which can be quite fantastic. Moving on to tactic number 2, I kind of alluded to mana dorks, and yeah, we've got a good amount of those. Elvish Mystic, again, a 1/1 for just 1 mana. can tap for a green. Get an experience counter, lovely, and ramp. Land of Elves does the exact same thing. Thirsting Roots, technically more like land drop hitting, not really ramp, but still. Sorcery for a single green mana, choose one. Go get a basic out of your library in your hand. Lovely, set yourself up. Or Proliferate, which can be fantastic, obviously, because that's an extra experience counter for you. And obviously, any other counters on the battlefield, you can be like, yeah, more counters, please. Lovely. Devoted Druid. You don't want more of these counters. I mean, you want like the actual +1 counters on this, not the -1/-1s. 0/2, that can tap for a green Elf Druid for 2 mana. Put a -1/-1 counter on it, untap it. So essentially, you can put a counter on it to untap it, which, you know, you can cancel out with +1 counters. So have Ezuri put a ton of counters on this. It can tap for a ton of mana again. Yeah, maybe keep it around, keep it alive. And then all of a sudden, next turn, more counters on it. Moving on. Mereleaf Pixie, a 2/2 flyer for 2 mana, can tap for green or blue. Great for mana fixing, but also, yeah, it's evasive. Keep in mind with evasive creatures like this one, that can be huge to finish out a game by getting a ton of counters on this and swinging through. Ornithopter Paradise might have 0 power now, but it might not later. A 2-costed creature that can tap for 1 of any color, and it's got flying, so evasive, and also can just be a great hitter for us. Priest of Titania can tap for a ton. Can't believe this is budget friendly right now, just 19 cents. 1/1 Elf Druid for 2 mana, tap for a green for each elf on the battlefield. Not just your own, anyone's elves, but still we have a ton of elves as well. So Secure Tribe Elder, Steve. There might be a situation where you actually don't sacrifice Steve. You might need it on the battlefield as a giant creature, which can be cool for Steve. But yeah, most likely a 1/1 that you sacrifice that is basically a rampant growth. Get a base land and play tapped. Rishkar, Pima Renegade takes advantage of our counters in a big way. 2/2 Elf Druid enters the battlefield. Get a counter beach up to 2 target creatures. Each creature control they counter on it can tap for a green. Basically, everything you control can be a mana dork, and many of them will be throughout the game. Springboom Druid, ETBs, sacrifice 1 land, 2 into play tapped. Basics, I should say. Next up. This is where things get really spicy. Viridian Joiner can tap amount of green equal to its power. My goodness, this can build over time so much. Again, on your turn, be like, okay, yeah, I got a combo, yeah, cool. Okay, I get counters on this thanks to my experience counters. Great. All of a sudden, this taps for an absurd amount. Next turn, maybe some more counters, maybe more, maybe other ways to play with, like, again, proliferate. You can get an absurd amount of value out of this and just go absolutely crazy. Wood Elves, slightly less crazy. ETBs get a force into play untapped. That's nice. Next up, we've got Big Horn Rancher. Again, have 2/5 for Vigilance. Tap an amount of green equal to greatest power among creatures you control. So again, this cares about other creatures' power, which is great. You'll tap for a ton of mana. You can also sacrifice it to gain life equal to greatest toughness among creatures you control, which can be great. And then Cradle Clear Cutter. Again, yet another creature like Viridian Joiner. We can actually just play this just for 3 mana if we need to for a 1/3, or you can play for a 3/6 if you got 6 mana lying around. Tap amount of green equal to its power. The more we build this up, the more we are tapping for. Now, as good as all these cards are, there's one, in my opinion, that stands by the rest, and that is the Golden Pig of this deck, which is the #1 card out of 99, and that is the Golden Arosi. Yeah, an interesting and weird card. A 3/6 vehicle for 4 mana, only crew 1. But of course, you can overcrew it if you want, and you're going to want to, when it attacks, exile each creature that crewed this turn, return them to the battlefield, tap others control at the beginning of the next end step. Now, this one, you got to be careful with. If you got creatures that have like a lot of counters on them, you're like, yeah, I'll probably keep those around. But if you have like other creatures that are just sitting around, you're like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll crew this, I'll swing, and all of a sudden, I will just blink everything I have, bring them all back. With all those ETBs, absolutely incredible. I mean, first of all, like, ETBs, like, what else? Great, cool. But on top of that, of course, more and more and more experience counters every single time, thanks to your commander. Yeah, you can build them up quite quickly with this. Definitely a great way to take advantage of those ETBs. An amazing card in this deck. In my opinion, the Golden Arosi is worthy of the title of Golden Pig. But now we want to do tactic number 4, extra, because we got other ways to get extra experience counters, extra +1/+1 counters, etc. And also -1/- counters with this one. Contagion Class. Enters the battlefield, get a -1/- counter target creature. An opponent's creature, most likely. Pay 4, tap Proliferate. So again, all those counters, including experience counters, get extra ones of them. Why not? Contentious plan, very simple, very effective. Proliferate, draw a card. Pollen Bright Druid, low the ground creature. Great. Already gets us an experience counter, which is very nice. Enters the battlefield, choose 1 counter target creature or Proliferate. Thrumming Bird, again, a low to the ground creature, even better. It's a 1/1 flyer. Whenever it deals counter to a player, proliferates. This can be a heavy hitter later in the game for us if we need it to be, but also just a great repeatable proliferation process. Steady Progress. Proliferate, draw a card at instant speed. Tainted Observer, a 2/3 flyer with Toxic 1, which is quite nice. So yeah, get some Infect on an opponent. Infect, poison counters, whatever they are, essentially. Get some poison counters on opponents, and all of a sudden, proliferate that to oblivion. Oblivion. Whenever a creature has battlefield under control, you can pay 2 if you do proliferate. Again, a lot of our creatures are very cheap. Extra mana to proliferate, that can be quite nice for us. Then there's Recon Craft Theta. 4/4 flying vehicle with crew 2. ETBs make a 0/0 alien, get a counter on it. Whenever it attacks, we proliferate. So yeah, every single time we attack, proliferating, that's quite nice. Also, getting counters on this, a vehicle, can be great for us because it's kind of semi-protected from, non-sorcery speed board wipes. Or I should say, sorcery speed board wipes. Can't really take care of it. So keep that in mind. But now let's go to tactic number 5, Counterplay. We've got ways to take advantage of counters. First up, Basking Brood Scale. We can adapt this for 2 mana, essentially. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on it, you may create a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn that we can sacrifice for mana. Now keep in mind, it does say 1 or more, so yeah, dumping a ton with our commander onto it doesn't really help all that much. We just get 1 still, even if we dump like 20 counters on it. That being said, yeah, this can be absolutely incredible. You proliferate, you get more creatures into play. Those have a little power. That's going to help with our commander as well. Keep that in mind. Next up, Wild Beastmaster. When this attacks, each other creature control gets +X/+X until after X is Wild Beastmaster's power. It might just be a little 1/1. That's okay. We're going to get a ton of counters on this. We're going to swing with it, and we're going to pump our entire team so much to decimate our opponents. Speaking of which, Dragon Throne of Tarkir. Equip creature as defender and pay 2 tap. Other creature control gain trample and get +X/+X until after X this creature's power. Again, suit up to your biggest creature, tap it, and then all of a sudden, your creatures are massive and can swing through that trample damage. Next up, Forgotten Ancient. If you can't really decide where to put the counters, this is a good place to put them. Whenever a player casts a spell, you get a counter on it. Lovely. So again, this can just get massive on its own quite quickly. Great way to distribute counters, though, too, because it says, beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of counters from it onto other creatures, which, of course, can help a lot with dispersing counters, really taking advantage of Proliferate, and taking advantage of certain things like maybe Master Biomancer. Each other creature control enters the battlefield with a number of counters on it equal to Master Biomancer's power, and it has mutant to other types. Already, that's 2 extra counters per creature coming into play. That being said, again, with Ezuri, you're like, oh, okay, I dump all my counters on this. Great. I play a Land of Elves. This has like 8 counters on it. Cool. My Land of Elves gets 10 counters coming into play. Massive creature. So yeah, things get really crazy really quick with this. Cultivator of Blades, a 1/1 with Fabricate 2. When it attacks, you may have other attacking creatures get +X/+X until after X is Cultivator Blades power. Yeah, that can be absolutely absurd. Again, being able to be like, you know what? Let's get some creatures in play, get some experience counters, then also just pump this to Oblivion, swing, and take my opponents out. Next up, tactic number 6, though. What's better than some counters? Double the counters. Double down. Let's go. Fangs of Colonia, sorcery for 2 mana. Put a counter on target creature you control, then double the number of counters on each creature that had a counter put on this way. Overload it for 6 mana. Yeah, basically 6 mana. Double up. Well, get an extra counter, then double up every single counter on all your creatures. Things can go crazy with this. Then there's Ornery Tumblewag. Beginning of combat, your turn, you get a counter target creature. That's just nice. But what's even more nice than that is you can saddle this for 2. When it attacks while saddled, double the number of +1 counters on target creature. Oh my goodness. And then for all the Hulklade, a great way to just double up whatever you need to. Pay 2 mana, essentially. Tap, double the number of each kind of counter target artifact, creature, or land. Yeah, this can be absolutely amazing. Instant speed, doubling it up. Absolutely incredible. Moving on to tactic number 7, things get really spicy with Dig Down. Benthic Biomancer, a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard Mutant, because that's a thing for a single blue mana. You can adapt it if you want to, but also, whenever 1 or more counters are put on it, you draw a card and discard a card. A fantastic repeatable loot effect. Again, it does say 1 or more, so like dumping a ton onto this from your commander might not be the best idea. That being said, proliferating, getting more counters on it, yeah, that's an amazing way to do it. Ingenious Prodigy. This one, you can dump it onto it. A 0/1 human wizard with Skulk that says enters the battlefield, X counters on it. It can be 0 if you really want to. Beginning of your upkeep, if it has 1 or more counters on it, you may move a counter from it. If you do, draw a card. A draw engine for us. Just dump a ton of counters onto this from our commander if you want to. Great. Do so. Next up, Bread for the Hunt. Whenever a creature controls a counter on it, deals counters to your player, draw a card. Yeah, that's an amazing way to just draw a ton of cards with this deck. Cold-Eyed Selkie. Speaking of which, a 1/1 with Island Walk. That player over there that's got an island, they're in trouble. And you're like, I'm sorry, you're not like my biggest threat, but you got an island and they don't. And yeah, whenever this deals combat to your player, draw that many cards. They're like, well, it's just 1. And you're like, not quite. Commander, give it all the counters. Swing, draw 10 or whatever. Absolutely amazing. Evolution Witness. Can adapt 2 for 1 and a green. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on it, return target permanent card from your grave to your hand. Absurd amounts of recursion from this. Again, yeah, don't just dump all those counters from your commander. You're only getting that once. That being said, again, you proliferate onto this. My goodness, every single time you do so, you bring something back. Inspiring Call, protection, and card draw. Draw a card for each creature you control they counter on it. They all gain indestructible planet of turn. Absolutely amazing for just 3 mana. Ezuri Stalker of Spheres, just a 3/3, but hey, you know what? That's okay. ETBs, you can pay an extra 3 if you do proliferate twice. That's already worth it right there. Even more so worth it, though, is whenever you proliferate, draw a card. So, my goodness, the amount of value you can have of this is absolutely crazy. Speaking of value, Fathom Mage. 1/1 with Evolve, so that's nice there. But more importantly, whenever a counter is put on Fathom Mage, you may draw a card. Does not say 1 or more. So, again, just dump those counters on with Ezuri and be like, experience counters are 10. Draw 10 cards, and also have a giant Fathom Mage to smack your opponents with. Then there's Tezzer's Gambit, very simple, very effective, basically 3 mana and 2 life. Draw 2, then proliferate. Thought Sponge, flash it in, enters battle with a number of counters on equal to the greatest number of cards an opponent draw on this turn. Can be a great way to get a good amount of counters on if you need to, but also when it dies, draw cards equal to its power, so yeah, if you get more and more counters on this, the more cards you are drawing. There's Vivid Surgeon's Insight. Draw 3, proliferate. Very simple, very effective. Prime Speaker Zagana. My goodness, the amount of advantage you can take out of this is absurd. A 1/1. ETB with X counters on it. X the greatest power among creatures you control. Enters the battlefield, draw cards equal to its power. Again, whatever your biggest creature is that you made amazingly huge with Ezuri, cool. Draw even more than that. Thank you so much. And also, this is an even bigger threat now, too. But now let's go on to tactic number 8, Wrenches. Yeah, we got plenty of ways to throw wrenches into our opponent's plans, and some adorable creatures help us out. Caustic Caterpillar, a 1/1. But again, any creature in this deck can be deadly. Pay 1 and a green, sacrifice destroy target artifact or enchantment. Aberrant, an amazing card for this deck. A 0/0 with Ravenous for X, 1 and a green. If you get 5 more counters on it, cool. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Trample, though. When it deals counter to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment the player controls. Again, make this massive swing through, take things out. Moving on, Canker Bloom, 3/2. Pay 1, sacrifice, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, and yes, proliferate. Outland Liberator, just a 2/2. Pay 1, sacrifice it, destroy artifact or enchantment. It flips over, turns into a 3/3. Has that exact same thing, but also on attack, destroy an artifact or enchantment that player controls. Serum Snare, bounce a non-land permanent back to its owner's hand. If it was a small permanent, made value 3 or less, we're going to proliferate as well. Smell Fear, have a creature fight. We're going to win that fight because we've got massive creatures. Proliferate as well. Viridian Zealot, a tiny little creature, 2/1 that we can sacrifice for an artifact or enchantment too. Voracious Varmint, 2/2 with Vigilance. Keep in mind, giving a lot of counters to this means swing freely. Keep it back for defense too. Pay 1, sacrifice though, destroy target artifact enchantment. Reclamation Sage on the ETB, destroy an artifact or enchantment. Foundation Breaker, exact same thing, but you can actually evoke it for pretty cheap as well. Nev's Disc, a great panic button. Enters battlefield, tap, pay 1, tap, destroy artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Again, panic button, be like, we need to get rid of things. Okay. Aethergale, another good panic button as well. 5 mana, bounce 6 things. It can be a great way to actually just clear out some blockers and be like, okay, I swing through. You lose. But now this episode is coming to a close. It's time for media from you, so let me know what your thoughts are on this deck in the comments below. Again, I think Ezuri is an amazing commander for a beginner player. Again, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. There are some layers to it as well, though, but yeah, basically, play small creatures, smack your opponents for a lot of damage. There you go. Again, just $19 according to Moxfield right now, not including shipping or basics, but you might already have those, or you can find them at your LGS, or maybe from a friend. Regardless, if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.